The Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com is brought to you by Pride Seeds, Nodulator Pro, and Cruiser Max Vibrance Beans.
Bern Tobin here on the Soybean School, joined now by Ken Currah from BASF at the Outdoor Farm Show today. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going to be a busy day at the show and a nice day at the show.
Yeah, nice dry day, lots of things going on. Hey, I want to talk a little about soybeans.
Yeah.
We got some senescence, we got some serious leaf drop. For harvest is not that far off.
Yep.
Pre-harvest burn down.
Yeah.
Big topic you're talking about today.
Yeah, a common question that those in my position and other agronomists are getting is dealing with weed escapes and trying to clean up a few soybean fields where weed control kind of bailed out here because of summer conditions. Canopy was compromised, and we have an assortment of broadleaves and some perennials and winter annuals coming through, and the question's coming on how to get that cleaned up.
So, what do we do here? What's the from a cleanup perspective?
Yeah, so one of the key options there is to use a glyphosate and then a product like Aragon, Group 14 herbicide, to clean that up. Aragon has some pretty nice activity on one of the primary weeds in my territory and in a lot of Western Ontario we deal with, which is glyphosate-resistant Canada fleabane. So Aragon's a product that we like to get on there. The pre-harvest interval is 3 days. The activity of that burn down pass is really quite weather dependent. The beautiful weather we had up until about a week ago, and now that we're getting into nice sunny weather again, really speeds up the activity of those burn downs. We use a water volume, we recommend 20 gallon to the acre there to get really nice coverage and paint those weeds, apply in good growing conditions, and we'll get nice activity, dry those weeds off, and allow for a little bit easier harvest activity going into October.
Ken, talk about this crop. A lot of variability out there, disease considerations, white mold. How do they factor into your strategy?
Yeah, that's a common question, because we have variable crops out there from one fence row to the other. And whether it's areas that were, started dry to the north of London in the spring and through June. And then, I have a lot of white mold in my territory. So I have areas where the field is, senescing normally. And then I have areas where they look kind of yucky, for lack of a better term, and a little bit more green in there. And the question becomes, what crop am I going after? And, we always say in agronomy, manage your best acres. And really identify in those fields, when it comes down to that proper timing for that pre-harvest aid pass. What crop am I after? What is the best area of the field? And I'm going to manage the best majority of the field, right? So those white mold areas, those low areas, generally a lot of yield there, but I think some of these fields, white mold is going to take some yield out of in those worst areas. Might want to manage the rest of the farm and look at that crop stage accordingly. And really identify what's my best crop here, and quite often the first crop is the best crop.
Hey, let's talk about post-harvest, right?
Yeah.
Some opportunities here to clean up some fields, some challenging weeds. How do we approach that?
Yeah, so again, a common question that the chemical company representatives like myself get. And, we'll go into, aside from that pre-harvest aid pass, we'll look at cleaning up wheat stubble that might have a cover crop like red clover in it, burning off alfalfa to plow down generally for corn the next year, and cleaning up fields. What's the common question? It's how do I control the perennials and the winter annuals like perennial sow thistle, and other members of the thistle family. Glyphosate-resistant Canada fleabane is a big one. Big old dandelions that are more than a year old. They got a big taproot on them. The burn down products in the spring just don't get them. Wild carrot is another one. Great time of year to control them in the fall. Reason being, those plants are trying to build reserves for the winter. In the spring, they're moving upwards in terms of nutrient flow and everything else to build that top growth, makes them very difficult to get activity on. In the fall, it's the reverse. They're moving nutrient and building reserves in that root to get through winter and survive into next spring. Let's send some chemical along for the ride, get that herbicide in there. And that's, there's some really good data out there from Mike Calbro, and I believe it's 2016 data that he published on Field Crop News, and it talks about recommended rates of glyphosate for some of those weed species. It also talks about, cleaning up alfalfa, adding 2,4-D to the mix. Cleaning up red clover, adding a dicamba product to the mix. So those two chemistries I just mentioned, 2,4-D and dicamba, group 4, and I'll talk about what makes them more active than say using the traditional burn down products out there, like a group 14, a product like Aragon and some of the other desiccants that have fast visual activity but may lack a complete kill in the fall. The group 4s work slower. It's generally quick symptomology, but they work slower, 2 to 3 weeks to kill. So to really get good kills on a good, robust alfalfa stand with a lot of root structure, to get good kills on those weeds that have big root structures, using one of the group 4s and using the right rate of Roundup, and some of those rates are fairly aggressive, they get up over a liter, and give that 2 to 3 weeks to work before doing primary tillage or strip tillage or whatever you have planned to manage that field in the fall. But that slower kill is more complete. That herbicide family is systemic activity, right? So we're sending the herbicide along for the ride as that plant prepares itself to go into winter.
Yeah. Hey, final question for you.
Yep.
And that is about soybeans here. I mean,
Yep.
it looks like we're going to be pretty early, or reasonably early.
Yeah.
Corn's really motoring along. Do you say that this fall would be a real good opportunity to get in and do some cleanup on fields?
That it seems like we get these late summers and wide open falls anymore, Bern, right? So some outstanding opportunities for weed control. Makes your life easier in the spring. We get piles of questions on glyphosate-resistant Canada flea bane as it's spread across the province. So I'll hone in on that one for an example. It germinates in the shoulder months. It germinates in those 8 to 20 degree air temperature, soil temperature type conditions. So it's germinating and establishing in the fall. And to control that weed in the fall, even if that population replenishes itself in the spring, because it's an airborne seed for the most part, right? You have your own population plus what gets imported in by wind. To control those weeds when they're small in the fall makes life so much easier in the spring. So it's just an example of getting ahead of some of the problems in the spring, and the fall presents some great opportunities, and we have some nice chemistries that work in the fall growing conditions, which of course slow down a little bit and affect the biology of the plants, but we can take advantage of that with the right herbicides.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for your time. Going to be a busy fall harvest, and we're going to clean up some fields.
Yep, for sure.
Awesome.